All right, let's jump into things. Where we at? Refresh this one. 11:35 on 6th of August. So look, I'll sort of fly over the news because there sort of a bit of lack of. We had a lot of PMIs out yesterday, fairly mixed kind of responses, as you can see. Main sort of one that was obviously driving the market, well, the market was looking out for, was ISM services. We did have this final services come in and beat a little bit here, but then of course, the final ISM final services, well, sorry, ISM services, PMI, came in a little bit weaker, and market sort of digested it for a moment or two, and then eventually just said, "No, that's enough for us for this effort, and we're just going to start dumping US dollar again." So it seems to be the story of life, man. So like, sort of moving along, everything's teeing up, lining up, and then shocking data falls on its face. Recoups, moves up, falls on its face. So meaning that the market's not completely written it off because I mean otherwise we'd be right back down at the very lows, but it does sort of go to show that sort of like it needs everything firing in its direction at the moment, and that sort of missing piece of the puzzle more recently just is some actual sort of consistent positive data because obviously after such shocking NFP and revisions and all this kind of garbage, and now pretty much the only bit of data we have for the week that's really affecting the US or more broadly the rest of the market. Um, it failed to produce and got slapped on the nose again. Through today, we had unemployment out of New Zealand, so they came in a little bit lower. It's one of those ones that I call a grey area because previously 5.1, so it has ticked up, but it hasn't ticked up as much as they thought. So although it beats expectations, it is still a negative direction movement for that there. But the general consensus with this seems to be that. They believe that this will sort of be adding to some sort of rate cut expectations. Um, could be, I don't know actually, because if you have a quick look at this, which I'll drag across now, it's a different chart. There's the one. This is whoop, some strength here. We can see that the market, as soon as that came out, market just ripped New Zealand dollar up to the top side there. So certainly a lot of sort of strength coming through in that there. So yeah, I don't know about the idea about it sort of adding to sort of cut expectations. Certainly the market wouldn't be sort of buying uh, New Zealand dollar based off that. That would be probably a more of a sort of yeah, I don't know. We'll see how we go. Certainly the price action didn't match what the print was. Through the rest of the day, pretty quiet, very quiet actually. Through nothing through Asia, nothing of interest through the through Euro, and then I guess you got a couple of speakers sort of in the morning over there. So I think the ones particularly for US dollar negative to look out for are that Waller and Bowman. They're the two dissenters who are sort of very much going on the whole, hey, US, the Fed should cut kind of trail. So, presumably, these guys are sort of more on still on the sort of wait and see kind of side. So we'll see how that goes, but that's about the only thing of note sort of through these sessions here today. So have a look at the charts here. So we had DXY. DXY actually had not too bad a little open, had a little bit of a gap down, and then obviously we can see a bit of a double bottom coming off the 78% here. Now, DXY doesn't mind a deep sort of pullback. This is obviously back onto the daily here. This is the zone that that I sort of pulled out on the weekend review. And I said, look, I mean, if we close up around here, well, it just shows that the market's still in the game because obviously we've got this little zone. It's been support, resistance, support, so on and so on. And, markets seeming to hold it here. It's also a little bit of now this is a little bit of a wonky one, but an inverted head and shoulders here with a back test. So there's a few things that are sort of saying, hey, look, it's worth a shot here. We've seen the market sort of like, smack back down into it. It was actually looking pretty decent yesterday. Let's go on to lower time frame. As we saw, we had gap down, big engulfing, ran through the day, looked like it was about to go, and boom, slapped on the nose yet again from that bit of data. So it's pulled back down here, and as I said, on the lower time frame, it's trying to find itself a little double bottom here. You can see it's actually just found a little bit of resistance at this previous area. Drag one through here. You can see this has been a little bit of a zone through here. It's obviously those most previous highs here. So look, you want to see for this to move up. Let's put a little alert here and say, bounce. That's it. That's all it is. It's going to be bounce. Because it's not really doing a great deal, to be honest, at the moment. Like it had a little bit of an open, sort of strong move. And if you look at yesterday's move, so this was yesterday's open, obviously gap down and just ran up here. Today, smaller gap down, but gapped and went down, just that bottom and ran back up here. You need to see, obviously, them hold on to these sort of moves and not just sort of go up and then boom, we've sort of back down. So I've just ticked over 11:30 where we get a little bit of volume in. We get a bit more volume in about 20 minutes or so. That'll kind of sort of tell us a little bit more about what's happening for today. If we can get a close back up above sort of 98.85, then okay, we can start to look at maybe undoing part of this ISM move. If it fails to do so, then you're putting the pressure really back on the bottom side over here because this is its double bottom rally effort. If that fails, well, then you're looking back down at the morning's lows, which are down here, and that will be, actually, let's just do that. That will be your kind of direction maker. I.e. sort of like if we come down here, then you're coming down testing these sort of main higher time frame supports, which are shown with the daily. And obviously if that cracks, well, you got the momentum, boom, coming down, back down over to these levels over here. Look, it opened up okay, but again, it's not getting any follow through. And it's one of those things that, look, high time frames, low time frames, it's the same thing. Looks doing well, doing well, doing well, doing well, and bang. Not even just shot in the foot. Kind of like sort of blasted in the face. Yeah, certainly frustrating to say the least. Let's drag one of these over here for what that's worth. See if that does anything. I mean, I'm not a big fan of that one. This one played out quite well yesterday. That was that sort of descending triangle, pop, bang. But we'll see how this goes. I think honestly, until it can get back up above, 99, call it 99.20. It's really just mulling over down here. So, it's all very well to get up above this little level here, this 98.85 or whatever. But that's really only just getting you into, further consolidation. Yeah, small little thing, we've seen the buyers hold here. If the buyers do hold here and we do move up, well, technically that's a high low, albeit, you know what I mean, it's a bit of a sort of wonky kind of, I wouldn't fully hang my hat on that as a structure, but it is these small little movements here that kind of can give things away. So look, I think in the short term, you want to see this thing sort of continue up here and at least close this hour a little bit more sort of positive to the top side here. And then if we do, then you're probably looking to undo 99, go to 99, that'll be your first sort of target. You do have a little bit of a range here, but the fact that I just chopped straight through it, I think it's already wiped out and then carved up. So yeah, I'm not really sort of considering this so much. I think if we do get back up above this 98, then I'll look to undo that to 99 as the first intra session sort of target. All right, I'm back. So yeah, moving on. Where are we at now? So 2 minutes left of the hour. Look, it's a tough call with this one here. I mean, we are technically sort of looking like we are sort of moving up here. Obviously, higher the better. I think pretty much where that alert's set, meaning basically, look, we've done a little spike out. Sellers tried to move in. If it can hold and then continue to move through here, then I think that's where we're going to look for pretty much a little bit more USD strength through the session. Seems to have been a little bit, as I said a moment ago, have been a little bit like that through Asia more recently. All right, move along. We got gold. Gold's actually just locking in a little bit of a lower high just on this little bounce move up over here. So we had a little support running through here, and obviously now we have sort of closed well down underneath that, at least in this shorter time frame. So let's put a little zone on that here. So look, it's a very choppy one here. We had that sort of pullback here yesterday, which was bang on the money. I said the pullback from 50 down to 50, so I was on the short side there. I didn't catch any of this long. But as you can see, this came back down pretty much smack bang right on 50. So it's always nice when these levels are holding pretty much as we sort of call it. As you can see, this little zone through here. Um, which chart did we have that one yesterday? Okay, not so much for that. Anyway, this is a little bit cleaner, so I can use this one for now. So, okay, we're closing down underneath this zone. This is just looking sort of intra-session. I've noticed 70 has been a little bit of a line last couple of sessions as well. I think it was the little point that we called, or that I called for yesterday, to sort of get down underneath to have a little bit more confidence. Obviously, a little bit of stuffing around, but once it went, it sort of gave away nicely. So I think it's pretty much a good trigger point we can use again. Just close the hourly candle there. We are down underneath this zone. If this sort of can continue down, 70 is where I want to sort of see this thing. So I'll put a little alert underneath that. And um, uh, so confirming deeper correction if we can get down underneath there. Because as you can see, it was a little bit of a sort of support over this area. Top wick of that over there around the 69, 70 area. A close under here will give me a little bit more confidence that this thing's going to be moving back down. You've got a little bit of a zone at 62, and then sort of obviously the clincher will be underneath 50. So get underneath 50. Okay, well, this move's kind of worn out a little bit, and we can see something deeper pulling back over here. But for time being, look, it has sort of closed underneath the zone. So we have technically in this little push anyway, got a lower high. I think you need to respect that. See how deep this one sort of comes back down over here. We are a little bit sort of overbought and sort of cooling off there a little bit as well. Just having a look at how these things. I mean, there was a big negative divergence up into this area here. But now obviously we put in a new high there. So I would say that this has probably got a little bit more sort of pulling back here, particularly if we do see US dollar run up. I think that correlation, something that'll start to sort of play out a little bit better. It's been very wonky. All correlations have been very tough this year, to be honest, and it makes it very difficult to get a read on stuff. But if we just look at the price action, and particularly just in this sort of section over here, which is going to be affecting us, you want to sort of see this thing obviously sort of continue. The RSI pushing down here, price pushing down with it. Underneath 70 will be the confirmation. Look, we can see here, yes, 70 was where we wanted to get down underneath yesterday. Pull back, push up, lower high, came to 70, and then just stuffed around. This is on the hourly, so it took 4 hours of going back and forth, chopping through that line. So this is why I'm not sort of fully sort of convinced that this thing's definitely sort of coming down over here. But I think sort of if you get down under 70, the confidence kind of grows for the short side position there a little bit more. Silver actually really sort of benefited last night from that ISM data. Kind of, this was what I was saying yesterday, broke out and just like really sort of consolidated. It was like, yeah, not really too much of it all. It has sort of pushed up a little bit higher here. Look, this could be seen as a little bit of a flag up to the top side here. If we sort of put a little box around this, that could be a little breakout box for a flag. Should this be, I'm not trading this, but should this be the way, that's your measured move, which kind of takes you pretty much back up to these highs over at 38, 38, 32, 38, 30, which is for argument's sake, whatever. So I think sort of like certainly you need that break higher above sort of 37.90. 37.90 should pretty much sort of look to undo at least this move up over here into this grey zone. So 38.20 to 38.30. That seems like a reasonable level should this thing sort of continue. If we do see US dollar run, that can negate a lot of this stuff. And this is what's a little bit difficult at the moment because you're getting conflicting things. Like gold and silver don't need to run together. But generally, if we do see gold sort of pulling back, it's probably pretty rare that we will see silver do the complete opposite. It's probably more the case that sort of, gold may run, silver may overperform or underperform, but still move in the same direction. So if we do see gold take out 70, I would be reluctant to buy this break up to the top side here. But Should this thing break out of this, that would be your measured move to the top side. I'm not taking the trade though, so that's just my sort of take on silver there short term. Moving along, we've got we haven't looked at Aussie, have we? Aussie, yep. So Aussie forming itself up a little bit of a triangle, sort of through this zone here. So we had the smaller range yesterday. Where were we? We were trading between I think 70 and where was it? Monday, Tuesday. Where were we? Can't even remember now at the moment. But anyway, whatever. The point is, it's in this little triangle here now. Technically, consolidation favors the direction it came into the consolidation. So technically, uh, moving into it, consolidate should look to break higher. Above 65, and I think you've probably got a little bit more of a squeeze and a push coming on here. Again, if US dollar runs, it's going to make it very difficult for it. You got the RBA next week as well. I would say they're going to cut, but it was like that last time, and Bullock really sort of stuck it to everybody and held the rate. So we'll see how that goes. But certainly, yeah, if you look at the ASX is pricing in some cuts. Man, that thing is absolutely ripping and negating all other sort of majors more recently. But yeah, look, back onto Aussie. What we're sort of saying, obviously, is just consolidation. A close above, into the 90s, or if you take out 65, or downside, I think if you can come down underneath, say, 44, like, yeah. I mean, look, technically underneath these 30s, you've got a bit of a wick, so it could be a little bit of support over here. But to me, it's more a close outside this box here. I think this is where the most recently we've seen the sellers step in and obviously move up the bid. If they sort of take out this 50 line, so okay, call it a close underneath 50, we'll say breaking down. Downside, because it's breaking down kind of could be a little bit more drastic. Underneath 20, that's where it's breaking down. But for the time being, it is in consolidation. It's waiting to see, like I said a second ago, what's US dollar, what's the market going to do with US dollar here? Are they committing to this little bounce, or is this enough? I mean, you've got NFP was shocking, ISM's whack, like sort of bad to poor for them as well. You're running out of ideas as to sort of all reasons, sorry, to buy the US dollar. Like it's not really sort of giving a great deal. I think, to the most extent, sort of like tariffs seem to have sort of like the tariff fear has been abated. So that's why sort of when you get a little bit of sort of weak US data, it seems to just be like, okay, well, that's what we're moving on at the moment. That's the only bit of data sort of for the week that's of any sort of note for the US, and it was poor. So, market could be very easily persuaded to just go, well, at the very best, we'll just hold off on buying US dollars. There's no reason to buy the US dollar at the moment. So we'll see how that goes, and Aussie could be the beneficiary of that. As I said, equity markets overnight did absolutely, no, didn't absolutely, sorry. Equity markets overnight copped a bit of a clap, clap on the head, whatever, slap. Um, ASX bucked the trend with that, and as it opened this morning, I'm just having a quick look, 80 jumped up 40 points on open and pulled back a little bit, but consolidating the highs at the moment. So, if the equity markets are moving up, that's obviously a little bit more sort of risk on attitude. That sort of favors the idea that Aussie could potentially move up to the top side here. And we'll sort of see how that goes. But really, very, very grindy, very sort of quiet kind of sort of stuff here. But underneath 50, above 65, and I think we should get some direction. Move along, we've got China. One. This is where we were at yesterday. So look, it's come back. It's found itself a little base, double bottom there, pushed up, came up into this higher time frame, sort of medium range where we saw the sellers have been. We saw the sellers have been, and broke through, tried to hold it, and the sellers have trying to reclaim this area. They did it once. That's fair enough. Second effort is what counts. and the second effort's pushing up here at the moment. So should it get up here, and I've got this alert still at 720 or 719.80, whatever, but 720, just because it gives it a nice clear move above that high. Should we get that, then we can look back up to 722. But for the time being, the sellers have been here previously. They're moving back in here again. We've got a second effort. Buyers in the short term have obviously moved up their bid a little bit, but again, you just need to see that continued push through. If it can't get that continued push through, well, then you're kind of looking back at sort of a larger kind of range and possibly back down to this 717 area to sort of see what they do there. And finally, with copper, copper broke to the downside. I don't know. No, not that I don't know. Look, it dribbled back down to this little level over here, but yeah, this is kind of where we're at with copper. I think that's a safe bet to sort of say that's the highs, that's the lows. If you see you move back up here, it doesn't mean it's recovering, it just means it's not dying straight away. As I said, I still think the fear is for the downside move over here and potentially even some major breaks if it does sort of come down here. And I'll really be watching for how the price action comes into this 720 level. Should it get down there? Because I think that's going to be the two big levels, 405 and 420, as it comes, or whenever it comes into this sort of rising support. But those two levels there, I think, are going to tell us whether we're going much deeper or whether that's a bottom and we could see a bigger recovery. But for the time being, I just don't think it's worth taking a stab on this. Yeah, it's come down hard, and you could say, hey, well, look, it's a lot cheaper than it has been in months. But at the same time, there's a reason that this has come down so hard, and you need to take that into account. So we'll see how that one sort of plays out. And I think that's pretty much it. So pretty quick one today, just sort of scanning over the charts. Price action's been been very choppy and fairly uneventful. So yeah, I think we're just going to have to wait till we get a little bit sort of more of a catalyst of data to sort of give us a bit more sort of solid direction. So when it's like this, you just pick those sort of like levels and just trade to the technicals pretty much. All right, that's it from me.